What's going on, guys? In today's video, I'm going to explain to you 5 things that I wish I knew when I started lifting, and then 5 things that you can start to incorporate into your workouts that'll get you as strong as possible. The first thing that I really want to stress the importance of is that throwing lots and throwing with proper technique will more than anything else help you throw further. That being said, strength is a crucial part to adding extra distance, but your number one priority should be to throw. Especially with the high school implements, strength doesn't play as much of a factor in distances. So if there's one thing that you can do and you don't have time to do both, make sure that throwing takes priority. And that brings me into my next point, which is that because we're throwers and that's our main priority, we should make lifting fun. And I think it's very easy to get too carried away with lifting too much, too fast, and being sore and making lifting miserable. And if you're not looking forward to it, it's hard to find the motivation sometimes to even get up and go. So making it fun by doing fun exercises or watching people online, and if they do something that you think you might enjoy, testing it out. If you like jumping into sand pits and doing box jumps or any kind of creative exercises that you can do at practice to make it fun, make sure that you add those in. Make sure that you find time for them, because enjoying lifting and enjoying the process will be something that will ultimately help you be the strongest you possibly can later on. I've been asked by quite a few people what I do for lifting, and my lifts are so unique to myself from different injuries and experiences that I've had, and every person is going to be different how they react to different exercises. So I want you to try to visualize this graph so that you can learn to find your own limit. The place that you want to be is in the range between being injured and not progressing anymore. If you can keep your training in this window, you're going to see gains, and you're going to be able to have consistent training that will help you to continue to see those gains. The tough thing with lifting is that to find this boundary, you need to test the limits. So there's going to be times where you lift too hard and you end up hurting yourself a little bit, so you need to dial it back. And then there'll be times on the opposite end of the spectrum where you aren't going hard enough and now your strength levels aren't going up. So my goal today is to share with you some strategies that can keep you guys in this range as much as possible. My next point is this. As you test your limits and try to find your upper boundary, you will inevitably be injured at some point. Now, the important thing to remember is that injuries happen to all throwers, and it's because we're doing this power event that's pretty unnatural to the body. So it's going to happen, and you've got to be proactive about it and find a way to deal with it. One of the most helpful things you can do is not pushing yourself too hard in the first place. If you're just starting as a freshman in high school or even younger, then you've got a 10+ year journey to get through to the end of college, and then even further if you continue to throw professionally. So when you're just starting to lift, you've got 10 years to get to the point that you need to before you decide to be professional or make it to your NCAA championships or whatever it is. So there's no rush. Ideally, you want to stay in your boundaries like I was mentioning before, so you don't get injured in the first place. The other thing that you can do to help prevent injuries is by adding in a bunch of core into your workouts and working stabilizer muscles. One of the best ways to work stabilizers is by doing body weight exercises. So push-ups and lunges and planks and things that are just body weight, human bodies handle very well. And that builds so many of the little muscles and strengthens tendons and will help prevent you from being injured in the first place. Another helpful thing is doing a good warm-up. When you're young and your body doesn't hurt, it's so easy to skip that warm-up. But if you can make it a good habit of getting a good solid 20-minute to half-hour warm-up before you even start practice, then that can also go a long way into making sure that you're injury-free. And the final thing, if you do get injured, one of the best things that you can do is try to get in and see a physical therapist as quick as possible. Sometimes the first couple days, you can get on top of it, start doing exercises, and fix it up almost immediately, where even if you wait a couple days, sometimes things can start to set in, and then it'll take weeks or months in some cases to go away. So be proactive, see someone to get stretches and exercises and things that you can do to fix the problem. And if you don't have money to go see a physical therapist, then one helpful thing that you can do is go online, look up human anatomy, and find an image with all the muscles in the human body. If you can start to identify where and what muscles hurt in your body and where those run and connect to, and other muscles surrounding the muscle that's hurting, oftentimes working on stretching those things around your injured area will help more than just trying to deal with the injured area itself. So finding someone that can help you diagnose that is key, but if not, you can start to learn to diagnose it yourself just by looking at the human anatomy. One of the most crucial things that will help you throw far and get strong is a good coach. So when looking for someone to train with or looking at a school to go to, think about looking at schools that have coaches that actually work out with the athletes. For example, Martin, the throws coach here at UVA, was a 2-time Olympian himself and does all of the lifts with us. So when he writes a lifting program for us that's pushing all of us a bit too hard, because he's doing it with us, he can see that, dial back our training, and understands that it's not us being bad athletes, it's that the workouts were hard. And I say it because it's so easy to get caught with a coach that writes these programs because it worked for someone else or he read online that it works. But because the coach hasn't actually done them, they lose track of just how hard they are and how much damage they're actually doing to the athletes' bodies. So a coach that will listen to you, listen to your body's needs, and help you modify workouts to continue to be productive even when you're injured or something's going wrong is so key. Now, as you're learning, sometimes coaches will try to push you and get more out of you. And that's different than a coach that's pushing you too hard. You do want someone that's going to push you to your limit, but they need to be humble enough to accept that everybody's different. And sometimes you'll be doing a workout that just hurts. And a good coach will have you stop so you don't get injured so that you can continue to throw. Next, I want to explain 4 main lifting categories that you should try to include in all of your lifting sessions. You're going to want some kind of Olympic lift, a power lift, some core exercises, and the opposites of all of your other lifts. Let me break down what those mean. For the Olympic lifts, you've got your clean and your snatch. And these can be broken down into subcategories of hang cleans and hang snatch, and also clean pulls and snatch pulls. The next category is power lifts. You're going to want some form of a bench press or some form of a squat. The third category you want is core. Having a strong core is very key to throwing and will also help benefit your life by having better posture, keeping everything in alignment, and that'll help you stay injury-free. And the next category I want to break down is opposites. And this is one of the most important things that I think you should incorporate in your workouts. So for me, if I'm doing something like bench press, for example, the opposite of a bench press would be a row at my chest. Now say I'm doing a clean pull. The opposite of my clean pull would be a push in that direction. So I would do something like rows. And working out and keeping your body balanced does such a good job at getting you strong. I know a guy that had problems for a long time improving his bench press, and it wasn't until he started working out the opposite muscles in his back by doing pulls that his bench press actually managed to go up. So keeping everything balanced will make you a better all-around athlete, and since you only throw with one hand, it's very easy to get out of alignment. So doing lots of these little exercises to counteract the main lifts that you're doing will help you stay healthy. The next thing that I really want to emphasize about lifting is that there's an incredible amount of technique involved in this, as well as throwing. So in the same way that it's important to have good technique with throwing so you don't get injured, it's also very important to have good technique in lifting so you don't get injured. So if you don't understand how to do any of these lifts that I'm talking about, I'm sure there's plenty of tutorials on YouTube from different lifters that have been doing it for years that can break down and show you positions. But take the time, listen to someone that's been doing it for years and can explain to you the strategies that will help you stay injury-free during these lifts so that it doesn't affect your throwing, because at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. So understand that there's a lot of technique required, and if you have the means and can find someone that can teach you the Olympic lifts or a high school coach that can teach Olympic lifts, then try to do that, because having someone correct your positions in person as they're happening helps a lot with getting proper technique right away so that you can avoid those learning curves where you get injured. The next thing that I want to talk about is doing specific strength exercises for throwing. So there's slight variations and different tools that you can get that will help build specific strength for throwing. One of the best ways that you can help improve specific throwing strength is by using heavy implements. By throwing with heavier implements, you're working the exact positions that you need to get strong in. But there's also a lot of things that you can do in the weight room to mimic some throwing. For example, for discus, instead of doing flies with your palms up, you can turn your hand sideways, and now you're simulating the movement of the discus. Another exercise I like for discus is using ropes, and I'll extend the rope out and throw my arm like I'm throwing the discus, and this is another great way to build specific strength. It's also a lot of fun just throwing a rope, which brings us back to earlier in the video where keeping it fun is also important. Also, instead of just squats, keep your mind open for things that will work your legs. For example, there's sleds. This is a great way to go do something. You're getting leg strength, but you're pulling something and having fun with it. Another good thing to replace squats is leg press if you have that. Or here at UVA, we have this thing called a pit shark, which is amazing. I don't know if many high schools would have this, but there might be some gyms out there that have it. So when looking for exercises to do, just keep in mind things that would relate directly to throwing. And you can modify and make up your own lifts and your own things to keep it fun and keep it exciting. So if you talk to a world-class thrower or a world-class coach, they know that peaking for big meets is very important. And along with throwing reps and the amount of throws that you're taking at practice, you can also start to modify your lifting to peak you specifically for certain times of the year. And that's exactly what professional athletes are doing all around the world. And it's something that you want to start to consider to do. So we typically lift in 4-week cycles. And at the end of the 4-week cycle, you start another one, but this time with slightly different lifts. And that keeps your body guessing so that you continue to improve your strength. If you always do only the same exercises, your body starts to get used to it, and you won't see the muscular gains that you would if you just varied up the workouts slightly every few weeks. So what I encourage you to do is go online. I'm sure there's tons of stuff that you can find out there pretty easily about the amount of sets and reps that you want to set up during a 4-week cycle so that you can start to peak yourself at the end of a few months. And it's a lot to go into, so I don't want to start with it on here in this video. But I will say that over years of practice and continuing to lift and paying attention to what your body does and how it reacts to different things, you'll start to notice different patterns. So over time, you'll be able to see that, okay, the week before a major competition, if I'm lifting with sets of 3, I get the best throws. Or if that week I'm lifting with sets of 2, maybe then I get better throws. And you've just got to play with it and see what works for you. But a great start to get you pretty close to what you want to do right away is just checking online, and you can start to plan out your exercises yourself. And the final thing that I want to leave you with, if I could leave you with one thing to ring in your ears, it's that consistency will beat intensity. If you can dial back the intensity enough that you can get much more consistent training, at the end of the year, you'll have way more hours of training in than someone who starts off with too much intensity, gets injured, and loses time training just because they started to go too hard right away. So find your limit, stay in that boundary, and be patient. You've got a long road to go, and you can't do it in a month. So plan to do it in 5 years, and that's going to allow you to stay healthy and continue to progress every day and not be so worn out from lifting that you can't go have a productive throwing day. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that you learned something. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, and if you really enjoyed it, subscribe for more. I will see you guys in the next one.